In case of an emergency, I'm sure you all know this anyway, there is no planned fire drills during this meeting. If you hear the fire alarm sound, please treat it as a real emergency and evacuate the building via the nearest safe escape route. The nearest escape route is via the stairs to your left as you leave the council chamber or the public gallery. Nobody up there any. Exit via the door at the back of the building and walk across the inner car park to the evacuation point, which is the pavement opposite the police station. The lifts can't be used in the event of an emergency, and please do not re-enter the building until you are advised it's safe to do so by a member of staff. Thank you. So, on to the agenda. Any apologies?
Yes, so we have apologies from Councillor Claire Mosdale and Councillor Ian Ward.
Thank you.
Chair, excuse me, I'm probably going to have to leave at 6:20 as well, just so you're aware.
But you're here, so that's not. So, on to the, and there has been no substitutions. So on to the minutes. Can we have affirmation that the minutes are okay? Can we, just by affirmation, is everybody in agreement with that? Yeah. Let's get this wrong. Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest? No. Wonderful. Public question time. So there's nobody in the public galleries, and we do have 3 questions from the public. So they will receive. When will they receive it? Tomorrow. Tomorrow, and it goes on the website. Yep. Is that right? Okay. Thank you very much. I think you've got the response in front of you if you're interested in that. So, progress on recommendations from the previous meeting. Didn't know.
It's a verbal update.
It is in here. Which page was it again? There we go. So it's page 77. Oh, that's not it, sorry. Put too many post-it notes in there, I think. Oh, here we go. Yeah, 133. So, as you can see, of the recommendations and whose responsibility it is, and the updates in the 3rd column. So has anybody got any questions on that? I can see there's a lot of work that's happened. No questions on it? You're quite happy with that? You noted it? Yeah, thank you very much. Number 6, so the flood and coastal erosion scrutiny, Carisbrooke, Gunville, Fairlee and Whippingham, Newport and Newport areas, basically. Pages 15 to 140. So how would we like to start this one off, Tash? Did you just straight to scrutiny? And so anybody got their questions ready? And who it's directed at? So we've you've only got we've got Southern Water online. We've got highways online as well.
No, I'm right here.
Oh, so you're going to ask, as in, sorry, I thought somebody else from highways was coming as well. So, okay. Southern Water online. We've got Vicky from the EA and Michelle. Okay. Councillor Cameron, I know you've got a few questions. Yeah.
The Section 19 report identifies multiple high priority actions with under 1 year timescales. Which of these have not yet started? Who is responsible for each delay? And what enforcement mechanisms exist if a partner organisation do not deliver?
Who would like to answer that one? Are you going to go to the tracker?
Yeah, I'm just going to the tracker. It's not a small document. As you'll see within your pack of information this evening, there is a tracker that exists within there that should have.
811, everybody.
Yep. Just looking for Newport in that very long list. The majority of those actions have been undertaken and are underway. Okay, so we had a recommendation that the upstream of Carisbrooke section of the Luckley Brook, Southern Water, to ensure that longer term actions for the maintenance of the pond are included on the Southern Water risk register and monitored. And which was one of the earlier 2014 recommendations following floods earlier. And with that, we had the update that the pond grill and overflow areas were checked weekly and after the weather warnings were issued, and that is now part of their business as usual regular clearance of all of those assets within that area. In terms of investigating the condition and capability of the culvert under Arthur Moody Close and the watercourse at Ash Lane, Southern Water have been assisting the council's surface water and flood officer with that. They have surveyed and concluded the overflow system would support water egressing in flood events. And we are going to be bidding for local levy funding as soon as available to ensure that we can have an overflow system there to support the movement of water in flood events. In respect of sustainable drainage systems, Southern Water have the desire, and they have not designs that are for each location, but they have designs that sit within their set of information. And when they find a route to develop a HAS scheme, they will do so in collaboration with Island Roads and with developers when they look at the wider landscape there. I believe Vicky from the Environment Agency may also have some updates on work that's happened in Newport, Carisbrooke and Gunville.
Yeah,
You'll need to press your red button.
Okay, thank you. So predominantly the flooding was surface water, but we also had some issues in the Gunville stream. Since the flooding, we have removed a number of obstructions within the watercourse. We've also removed the bottom grill at the Towngate Pond, which is allowing more debris to pass through without blocking. So that's actually created some capacity within that network. We've cleared the reeds in Towngate Pond. We've also set the sluice gates under St Cross Mill into a winter and a summer setting, which enables us to lower the levels within the Luckley Brook and the Gunville stream, again providing more capacity. And a lot of it is business as usual. Obviously, we have a schedule, maintenance schedule. We've reviewed that. We continue to do debris clearances, grill runs under instant response, and attend any reports of blockages as and when they happen. You. Supplementary.
What enforcement is there if they don't comply?
That would depend on what section we're looking at in there. The Environment Agency wouldn't enforce against themselves for not complying against themselves, obviously, but they have already complied with the work that was required of them within that report. In terms of developing a community flood plan, there is a Gunville Flood Action Group that meets quarterly at the Isle of Wight Council building, and our colleagues in emergency management regularly work with them and liaise with also the parish community council for Newport to make sure that we have those wider groups building and knowledge building in place for flood plans. In terms of community training and exercises of the new community flood plan, that takes place both with highways and with the council, and we regularly have that as part of our GFLAG meetings to understand what we are doing in terms of flood proposals, so that there is no enforcement in respect of developing community groups. In terms of the condition and capacity of the culvert, that is an activity that we have chosen to do. It is not something that is enforceable, but it is something that we are working on, as we said, trying to find that funding. With the Forest Hills development, there is those investigation opportunities for nature-based solutions, SUDS, retrofit, and surface water design in the planning application that has been granted permission, but it's still awaiting its move through the conditions. The planning team are still waiting for the detailed drainage designs for that development, and when those come through, the Gunville Flood Action Group, as well as the community, will be able to comment on those detailed designs before they move through to being accepted by the planning team, and then that eventual consent being issued. So there isn't an enforcement action at this point on that, because it is within the planning process. And other than that, there is just, as Vicky's gone through, the enhanced monitoring of assets and removal of obstructions, which is part of business as usual for the Environment Agency.
And also, just to add, we carry out T98 inspections of the watercourse, which is when we go out and look at the condition of it. If we find anything that is of concern or needs further monitoring, we do write to landowners and remind them of their riparian responsibilities. So whilst it's not enforcement, we do communicate with landowners with regards to the watercourse and the condition. So it's not sort of an enforcement route, but it is something that we do as part of our condition assessments.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Thank you, Chair. Vicky, thank you for coming today. I suppose a sort of simple question is, if the same incidents happen again, would the measures you've taken have sort of to flow up, or to ease the flow, sorry, of the water course through Towngate Pond, etc., would that go some way to preventing the incident occurring again on the same scale?
It can, yes, it can do. I mean, there is more that we are doing. We are just undertaking a project to get some updated modelling of that area. That's really to inform us of future projects. I mean, obviously that's fun, depending on funding. But we do know those water courses, and a lot of the reasons why. Quite often it is just surface water, the rainwater. And it is about keeping those waterways clear, which is riparian responsibilities and ours. So, as I said, we do everything. We've reviewed our maintenance schedules. We've upped our schedules in terms of debris clearances, and writing to homeowners just to remind them to keep it clear.
Through you, Chair, is there a greater buy-in from landowners surrounding the area in terms of clearing their ditches and making sure they're doing all they can to help the situation?
Yes, in some areas there are, in other areas there aren't, but it's just a case of education and how we can help. I mean, there are some things we can do, but there is a lot. For one, Gift to Nature had a very good project called Love Your Lukeley some years ago, where they educated all landowners along Caesars Road, that sort of area, around throwing their rubbish, garden rubbish, because that's obviously a concern, because that gets caught up on the grill, Westminster Grill namely, and then that backs up. So that's a small scale, but then we have the larger landowners as well, which we are working with, whilst looking for new data to inform us of future projects within that area.
Councillor Stewart, please go on.
Thank you. I always anticipate that my colleague, Councillor Blake, those questions will demand very, very long answers. So I was not anticipating being quite so fast. Right. Very simply, the repeat on this particular event is put down as 0.28 and 0.38. I was just trying to check that I got the figures right, but couldn't find it immediately. Given the changes that we've seen over the last few years, and I do mean the last few years, October 23 is an example, but we've seen them subsequently, where we see more intense events more regularly, as it were. Does the Environment Agency consider that repeat pattern needs to be looked at, that repeat figure needs to be looked at more closely? The issue I see is that we're talking of an event which is supposed to possibly reoccur every 30 years or so. But if the if the rainfall is more intense and there is more water held in what we have at the moment, for instance, which is very saturated soils, then, you know, the risk is that much higher.
So those will be the scenarios that we would ask when we're looking at the mapping and modelling project. There would be a number of scenarios, you know, return periods and events, 1 in 100, 1 in 200, and what that modelling would look like, which will shape and form any future projects. So answer to your question, then yes, you know, we won't be, but our consultants will be looking at as part of that appraisal process.
Sorry, can I just follow that up separately? And I believe that there is some work already going on. One of the issues from my point of view, and I know that it's occurred elsewhere in the UK, is retention of water within the landscape, and certainly in the sort of upper catchment areas, basically to reduce the peak flows. Obviously, that's a complicated issue because you're dealing with a large number of landowners. There was one particular one which was mentioned as a good example in the Monkton Mead Section 19 report when we were talking about it. Is there anything similar within this catchment area?
There is. It's a recent project that's been done by Southern Water, and they, in Place Meadow, up at the top of the catchment, they have reconnected the floodplain. So it's for water quality, and yeah, I mean, it was more their environmental side, but I actually did issue the flood risk activity permit for the three, but the one I think that's important for this discussion is up in Place Meadows, reconnecting the floodplain. So just using natural processes to meander the river again, which is storing and attenuating that water, which is slowing the flow in high flows. And we're looking to do that in quite a few areas across the island. But for this one, this is showing we are receiving monitoring reports, and they're quite interesting. So it is working. We've also got the same on the Eastern Yard. So yeah, that is an interesting project. We call it natural flood management.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fuller, and then I'm going to ask a question.
Thank you. The question I really want to ask is about community engagement. I think there was a few of us that was there on the morning after the flooding happened. There was lots of very angry residents. How are we managing community engagement? We know that there is the Gunville group that has also met, but how are we building inroads? Because one of the things that is so important is to ensure that flood groups are set up, but they remain active. And how are we ensuring that the flood group that's been set up after what happened back in 2023, I think 2024, as it was, yeah. How we actually keep that momentum going, because again, it's so important that happens and is maintained, and that it grows, because you know we talk about 30-year events, but we know that they're a lot more regular than that. How can we actually ensure that the first of all, that the momentum is kept, and that town and parish councils and community councils can build into that?
We'd like to. Lisa from Emergency Planning.
Hi, so in terms of the government's approach, the whole society approach to resilience, through the Local Resilience Forum, we have a community resilience work stream. So we work very closely, and especially here on the island, with town and parish councils. Whilst there might be a flood action group set up, we're also working with those town, parish and community councils to look at their community emergency plans and how they can also support their residents in time of need. And obviously that's not just flooding, that's right across the kind of risks that are on the National Risk Register. I think it's fair to say that we can engage, but it's entirely reliant on those councils to actually take forward the work. And I would say that's probably the same with the flood action groups as well. We can engage, but they need to own what those plans. So we will be reliant on the progress of those based on how quickly they want to progress it themselves.
Thank you. Can I ask a question? Is that all right? Southern Water, online, I think Adam, are you the only one online? Is anybody else from?
No, I'm the only one, I'm afraid. The
Don't be
management team
afraid.
are at a quarterly business review in Brighton, so I'm the only
Don't
one
worry.
available, I'm afraid.
Can I ask just what your part was in the things that you did after the event?
What event?
For the
What one?
Newport, Gunville.
Gunville, we only had one incident, which is on Gunville Road, which we addressed with an internal flood. Monkton Mead, we conducted about 16 to 17 cleanups of properties, but where we also actioned AFD upgrades and replacements with certain areas on the Strand where they failed due to the high
Adam,
pressure.
we're just talking about so the areas we're talking about are Carisbrooke, Gunville, Fairlee, Whippingham, and Newport. After their flooding there, which Newport
I
was the
don't
same
believe
day.
we were, I mean, there wasn't anything for us. There were no actions for us in those particular areas apart from, I think the recommendations for the S19 reports were to increase the capacity of the sewer system. That was the only recommendations I recall from the S19 reports that I read.
Okay, and how have you got on with that?
That's ongoing. I think it's a 10-year plan, if I recall the recommendation. But we've got other things in place in the next 5 years with the Clean River Seas Task Force, who will be looking at a high number of CSOs to reduce the spill rate, which will in turn have a positive effect on mitigating floods in certain areas. But that's an ongoing process. They haven't really started there. They only started in Wroxall.
Thank you very much, Adam. Before I bring Julie in, Julie, I'm going to let the committee ask the questions first and then bring you in if that's okay afterwards, okay? Anybody else? Sorry, it was Councillor Stewart again.
Sorry, Lisa, I wanted to follow up on what Councillor Fuller was saying. We talk about town and parish councils. I've not seen a great deal coming forward to the town and parish councils, or the parish councils that I deal with. I've got 3. You're entirely right that part of it, much of it, is around the intention and capacity of the parish councils to take those issues forward. Is there a possibility of stronger encouragement through their collective body, which is IWOC, and directly, because within my area, there was a lot of flooding, both surface water and riparian through the rivers. And there were quite a lot of places which were flooded, but did not report them. So obviously we did not, and that's a continuing issue, but so we don't have a Section 19 report or anything. We don't have lots of investigation, but we do have key things that did occur that were successful in mitigating the risk. I'm particularly thinking of Bryston, where some work which some people did along with Island Road has meant that the catastrophic flooding which we saw in 23 has not reoccurred. Now, obviously we're talking for Carisbrooke, but Carisbrooke, Newport, etc. But I just wonder whether there is any plan at the moment to re-encourage them.
You know that you have been doing work with IWOC.
Yes.
Last year, I think it was, wasn't it?
We
But
do
was that on
regular-
resilience?
Yes, we do on a regular basis engage both through IWOC and also contacting the town, parish and community councils around progressing their plans. We will continue to do that and we will continue to be available to engage with them. But as I said previously, we are reliant on them to do that and come meet us at the table.
Credit where credit's due, and it's not about just my ward, but they've been incredibly helpful to ride. We've got really good plans there now, so I would recommend it.
The Environment Agency, thank you. Also support with flood groups as well. And obviously when we do get those reports, I work in quite a few communities across the island. and have supported and set up flood groups as well. But like Sarah says, it's really down to those parish councils and the residents to keep that momentum going. And I've seen flood groups that have started and are very successful and they've got funding. They don't have flooding for a few years and then the group kind of disbands. So yeah, it is a problem. But they're very, very useful, especially in those communities.
Can I just ask about we know that a lot of people when they flood and of course a lot of different areas have different types of flooding, but the reporting of it, so to someone on river, you know, etc. How do we get that reporting better? Can we have one point of contact? Is there a way of working together that people don't have to keep phoning lots of people?
The reporting of flooding when it happens is incredibly difficult, and it really does have a series that we need to work down. If people's lives are in imminent risk, then they do need to call 999 and ensure the appropriate emergency services are there. Otherwise, the primary reporting route is the floodline through the Environment Agency. Stepping down from there, if there is sewage within your home, then you can call Southern Water and they will come and help clean up those incidences where the sewer is backed up into properties. But fundamentally, the key point for us to really make sure that we're getting as many records as possible is to call floodline in the event of a flood. Emergency services first if you need them, but then still report it to floodline. And then we can share that data later inside our risk management groups to make sure that we are getting a collated number. Some of the biggest issues that we had in 2023 were down to a lack of reporting, which made it very difficult for us to justify to central government in the first instance how many properties had internal flooding, and ensure that we got those home grants available for people who had internal flooding in their properties and needed that immediate support. We're very good as a community at talking about the problem, but we do need to make sure that we do call floodline. We do make sure those numbers are recorded every single time, and then we can have statistics that meaningfully help us lever change, lever investment, and lever the strategic wheels that we need to make sure that flooding can be mitigated into the future.
Before I come to you, Councillor Blake, on that subject of reporting, the council website I think probably needs to be looked at again. I know we spoke about that before. Has it been done now?
The order of numbers to call is in the order we just spoke about on our flooding page, and those numbers do exist. We also have the flood leaflets which go out to communities in advance through the flood action groups and are available online to download, and that has the list of up-to-date phone numbers of who to call and which circumstance, and also has helpfully on the back somewhere to jot down your gas board, your electricity board, your key numbers that you may need to call in the event that you need to leave your home. Lisa?
Also, through our comms team, we do actively engage with you as councillors as well, and the town and parish councillors, making sure that you've got those key contacts that you can pass on to your residents. And likewise, if your residents are reporting flooding to yourselves, about almost reporting back into us, because you might know a lot more than we do at the time.
I do know there's some new stuff coming out soon that we'll be getting, isn't there? And the LGA have done some too, so it's really helpful. Councillor Bake. The Bacon.
Thank you, Chair. It's just going back to something that Vicky commented on a little bit earlier about riparian owners. And there are some, you say, that are not accepting of their responsibilities. Two-part question. What are you doing or can you do about those? And you also referred, I think, I'm paraphrasing slightly, that some of those bodies are larger property owning bodies. Are there any of those who have property elsewhere on the island that is leading to a risk because of a non-understanding or non-acceptance of responsibility?
I'm unable to comment on any individual owners or landowners, only because it's our asset performance team, which I don't sit in, that would conduct that type of work. So it's really dependent on a situation by situation basis and the severity of what we're looking at. more engagement would be required if it was, you know, a bigger impact or could potentially have a bigger impact in flooding. Sometimes it's low level, sometimes it's a bigger joined up conversation with other authorities as well. But I couldn't give you an instant because I don't work in that team.
Could I perhaps ask though, I have a particular body in mind, but I won't mention them. We're not naming names here, but if a body is engaged with and they are not accepting or understanding of their responsibilities, are there any formal steps that can follow to press the point home, shall we say?
We've never been in that position because we've normally been quite successful in our conversations. So I don't have experience of that, but there would be an enforcement route should there be more serious issues.
Vicky, Councillor Blake, it's your turn now.
Thank you, Chair. Tash, can I ask some questions on planning matters regarding this? Particularly around sort of the Gunville area, there's a lot of relatively new build houses there in terms of in more recent times. That would have been designed with flood management in mind. And has there been any examples of alterations that homeowners have made to, for instance, their driveways and things that planning enforcement have become aware of that may have altered those flood designs?
A lot of our older housing estates across the island, housing estates across the island wouldn't have been subjected to the same level of rigour in terms of detailed drainage designs as they are today through the planning process. We would normally see those drainage designs, including the highways and how the highways flow, the gullies flow, and the systems for water to move through an estate. There certainly can be instances where drop curbs and driveways can breach what would be a natural flow of water within an estate, but we would never talk about an individual property in this environment. But it certainly can happen across the island in many different places where downhill houses of roads can put in a drop curb and disrupt that water flow. But it is a problem, but it's not the major cause of that surge of water. Much of the surge of water that we've seen in these instances are because we had unprecedented amounts of water within that very short period of time that deluged the systems. Was more than the capacity of anything was built for, because it was a deluge of rain above normal water levels. So, and the flood water on a hill will move by the path of least resistance, which is across gardens, across backyards, across driveways, and will continue to flow. But yes, we do need to consider when we are making alterations to our homes in areas that are known for flooding, if those alterations are going to impact our properties, and if those alterations will allow water to egress into our homes.
Councillor Cameron.
Will the Section 19 tracker be published online with live status updates so the public can see the progress being made, rather than returning only intermittently to a committee?
Section 19 tracker is something that we've only put together in the last 12 months. I'm very proud of putting it together and getting all of those risk management agencies around a table. Today is the first time that we have publicly aired that, and I appreciate that there probably is a desire for that to be online. And I think we need to review the language within there and make sure that it is accessible to everyone before we do so, because at the moment there is a lot of technical language within that tracker as it's populated by technical individuals. I can certainly have that conversation with how we can represent a complex workbook in Excel accessibly online that meets our digital accessible formats requirements, and see what we can do with the web team into the future.
That's a good question, actually. Be interested in that, definitely. So is the committee finished with their questions? Anybody else? Well, I'll go to Councillor Julie Jones-Evans. Julie.
Oh,
Hello.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me come in. And Podge, I can't be with you in person this evening. This is really interesting session with your committee. I had a quick question again about riparian rights. Sorry. It was really good to hear what Vicky was saying. There's a particular issue, I think, maybe with areas that are on the on or by the watercourses, but that are on unadopted or orphaned land. I have such an issue right by the junction of Caesars Road, Willville Road, and the sorry, I just got to get out of the room a second. The by the bridge there, we had a dreadful incident about 10 years ago in the floods in 2013. And there's a tree overhanging there. I've been trying to get some traction on, but it's on an unadopted piece of land, and no one's taking responsibility, and it really is a risk to the watercourse. So I was wondering, is there a policy to deal with such incidents? Really, thank you.
Do you want to answer?
Yeah,
that?
well, I mean, yeah, when it's reported into us, we would assess that on risk. So if we felt that it was a significant risk for flooding, we would use our permissive powers to carry out the works to remove the risk. I'm not sure we've actually attended site. I don't know if it's been reported in, perhaps report it into the incident line, and then we would get that back to us, and then we would carry out those checks.
Yeah, thank you, Vicky. I did report it about 3 years ago, I think it was now. But I haven't had any updates despite asking. So I'm happy to take a different. If you let me know what's the best route to take, I can start over again. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. It would depend on that risk and how we move forward.
So
Thank you. Yeah,
going back to reporting stuff, really, really important. Thank you, Julie. I know you've got a question later, but
I'll leave that for now. I'll leave that for later.
You're on the community council. We're just talking about setting up a flood group, and actually should be led by probably the community council and residents. So maybe we can talk about that outside of here rather than the council doing that.
Absolutely, yeah. We have a flood working group at Newport. So yeah, it'd be really good to feed into that and have a network.
Oh, you have got one.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about it afterwards. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
So I know that we note this or put some recommendations to it. So I have written some stuff down. Does anybody else have any recommendations they want to add that we might not have thought of? Anybody else from anything they've said would like anything? Otherwise, I'll just say what I've got here. Shall I? Shall we start with that? So I've just talked to the councillor in Newport, so on the community council as well, about setting up a flood action group. So we decided there's not really council's role to do that. So I'll take that up outside of here. We've talked about IWOLC and your continuing work. So we'll add that to that, just so, because it's a recommendation that continues. And I know you do an excellent job. I'm a great champion of your department. So, but we'll put that in there just to make sure that carries on, because it was brought up by the councillor to make sure that works. I think making sure the community's voice is heard in the Section 19 report. I think we must tighten up how we get everybody's voice. So I think that's one thing that anybody else has Section 19 that I've heard, is maybe people feel that they haven't been heard maybe as well as they, and I think we need to tighten up around that. And I don't know whether that's a discussion about how section, I'm not blaming anybody here, but maybe we need a discussion with the MPs about legislation or how that's done, or if there needs funding for that. But we certainly need to have the community's voice heard much better than that. So I'll give you a list of stuff. I do like, we talk about Lukeley, Love Your Lukeley, but I think we do need to do a campaign on Love Your Waterways of some description for education. A lot of, like you said, a lot of people, and that's why you do so well, because actually people, when they find out they're not doing things maybe the way that should, it's education, and people are quite interested really, aren't they? So I think that would be a really good things to do. Well, we talked about, I did put the one contact thing, but it doesn't seem like there's really any scope for that. I do like that, but I think again we need to get it out there about all the numbers. I mean, I know locally we do that. We've got a notice board, etc. So we're quite lucky that we've done that with our flood group. But I'll thank you, Lisa.
All the contact numbers are actually live on our website, Keep the Island Safe, under the severe weather and flooding pages. So if there's any that you think we're missing, please do let us know, because we can get that updated really quickly.
We have a recommendation that you send out to members then, please.
Yeah, I can do that through the
That would be
comms.
wonderful if you could do that, Lisa. Thank you. I'm sorry, everybody who's listening. Put in the tracker so it can be, I know it's probably not right now, you've got to work on it, but actually I think that's probably quite a good idea for people to actually have confidence, the council, and I've got confidence that you're doing it. And it's great that it's out there for the first time. It's just wonderful. It's a really good piece of work that this committee's and officers have done in my 5 years, really, since the flood. It's really good. But that would be a good thing to do. And anybody else got any?
Chair, just to raise a suggestion that came from the ward councillor, Councillor Lever, which I thought was quite a good one, was to perhaps build a tiny bit of learning into the proposed new councillor learning modules for May onwards, in terms of what a section 19 is and how we can interact with them as councillors to make sure that we're serving our public the best. I think it's a good idea.
So, in the induction on new councillors. Simon, would you like to see?
Just to say, Chair, that my esteemed colleague in front of me, Mel, is working on the induction process, so I'm sure she's noted that, and we'll make a note of that and make sure that's included. It's useful to hear your views on what it is you want to know about, because obviously we can't, anticipate what it is you need to know out there for your residents. Thank you.
Verbatim what he said a councillor training / material on section 19 process to be provided so councillors can effectively communicate with residents at the right moments to maximise community engagement and evidence gathering. This does not need to be anything particularly laborious or officer intensive, but just to outline the various steps and what's required. This is what Councillor Lever specifically put across.
I think it's going back to Councillor Bacon's, and I'm not sure how it works. How do we educate about riparian, do we need to do another piece on that?
We've got a very good link on our website. There used to be a booklet called Living on the Edge, but it's recently changed. And that's very informative around riparian responsibilities and what to do when you own a watercourse. So that link could be shared out. Yeah, okay.
Sounds a bit dangerous. Could you rename it maybe?
I believe it has been renamed. It's no longer Living on the Edge. That was our famous one. It's now.
I've tried to listen to I've listened to the conversation and kind of weaved in different things that I think that reflect the conversation. So if everybody's okay with that, we'll move on. Okay, so we're the decision part of our meeting. So we've just done the scrutiny. And thank you. You don't have to stay if you'd like to go home. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Adam.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Lisa, thank you as always. You can stay. Okay, so to receive and consider the following items for decision: the climate and environment strategy update, pages 141 to 302. Tash, do you want to introduce this, or do you just want to go straight to questions? I think you should introduce it because it's a great piece of work.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we came to committee in August to recommend updates to the climate and environment strategy. You'll notice that we have slightly adjusted that strategy to really reframe it around the priorities that are supportive of our community and have high impact to our community. And we have also recognised the environmental improvement plan that is a national legislated improvement plan, and ensured that is part of the process of environmental improvement and climate adaptation. So this update, since we first adapted the strategy, we have made significant progress. Island-wide emissions have been reduced by 27%, and council operational emissions have been gone 37% down since 2021. But in the context we are operating has changed. We have now seen more frequent and more severe weather events, including the October 2023 flooding that affected communities across Newport, Gunville, Carisbrooke, Ryde, and the wider island. We've seen 2 major landslides that occurred because of the amount of water that has moved through our systems and the weak loose geology that we have. And this refresh will bring a stronger emphasis on climate adaptation and ensuring that we are adapting to a changing world. Whether we believe that climate adaptation is due to man-made factors or down to the Earth's natural cycles is not something that we need to debate at this forum. What is important is that we are ensuring our communities are able to adapt to change and to a well-evidenced changing environment. Whilst keeping our commitment to mitigation, the long-term goals of net zero, we crucially, within this strategy, place 3 priorities at its core: reducing fuel poverty, reducing food poverty, and improving our population's well-being through environmental improvement. These are not add-ons, they are fundamental to how the island becomes healthier, fairer, and more resilient. The island is a system, and that system needs to function as a whole, and to do so, we need to work collaboratively across those different areas in our changes. So the updated strategy now aligns closely with the nature recovery strategy that was adopted last year, the environmental improvement plan, a national set of regulations, the island transport plan, which has recently been consulted on and come to the ERTI committee, and the commitments that we have as a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. It also embraces our growing programme of nature-based solutions, environmental protection, and low-carbon infrastructure. We have continued to expand on local renewable energy generation, now to 102.7 megawatts, generating more than 82,000 megawatt hours annually. And we're building the foundations for energy self-sufficiency through solar, battery storage, heat pumps, and the electrification of our fleet and street lighting. Meanwhile, programmes such as Warm Up White and the Warmer Homes Initiative and the Great British Insulation Scheme are helping residents directly, especially those at greatest risk of fuel poverty. Across transport, housing, waste, biodiversity, and community resilience, the strategy sets out clear, measurable actions. Many of these already have momentum through partnerships with town and parish councils, Southern Water, Natural England, the voluntary and community sector, and the island's businesses and schools. This refresh also reflects work underway on flood risk reduction across Newport, Gunville, Carisbrooke, West White, Eastern Yar, and those Section 19 recommendations reported earlier today. Climate adaptation and flood resilience now flow through parts of the strategy. And finally, these updates establish a strengthened monitoring and reporting framework, ensuring transparency, annual public reporting, and the integration to our performance management and decision-making processes. You'll see many of these reported in our performance reports that go to Audit Committee. This is a strategy that builds on what we have already achieved, acknowledges the challenges ahead, and prioritises the well-being of our communities. It sets a clear direction for how the island will adapt, thrive, and continue to lead on environmental action. And I commend the updated strategy to the committee and welcome any queries.
Thank you, Ash. Wonderful. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Tash. How does a strategy meaningfully influence planning decisions when inspectors have overridden local climate and net zero requirements? And what mechanisms remain within council control?
As you have said, the planning inspector did ask the planning policy team, who are not here tonight, to remove that section or significantly change the section on reaching net zero homes. That is to be replaced in favour of the new but better home standards that are coming forward. What that doesn't do is change the requirements that sit within national planning policy for adaptation to a changing environment. And those changes we will manage through the process of supplementary planning documents to help support the community to make changes such as retrofit in listed buildings, retrofit in agricultural stone buildings, older buildings on the island that is traditionally more difficult to retrofit and get through planning policy. And we will be working through that process to ensure that we can still achieve our goals, but we just achieve them through the policies that exist nationally and through supplementary planning documentation and through the nationally required adaptation.
You got some, would you like any more? Councillor Cameron? No. Councillor Bacon?
Thank you, Chair. I'm extremely supportive of this. Probably would say that I was the cabinet member who brought it forward originally, back in the good old days when we had such things as cabinet members. But two things I'd just like to ask. One is my pedantic typo moment for the day. In the glossary, we list the area of outstanding natural beauty.
Thank you. I will
It
update
became
that.
national landscapes a couple of years ago.
If we reviewed the document and haven't reviewed the glossary, I will see to that before it is adopted in the public.
Thank you. And then just in the covering report on, it's paragraph 7, page 142, refers to the outputs, refers to 11 that have been cancelled. I wasn't able to pick up from the documentation what has been cancelled. Those that are on hold are identified. This could be me going through things too quickly, but is it possible to give a little bit of information on what has been cancelled and why?
I don't have that list with me at the moment. It was part of the August papers, so I will pull those out and send them over to you. Sorry?
I think I missed the August meeting, as I recall.
Yes. Yeah, they were ones that were either already achieved or unachievable because of changes that have occurred over time. But I will get those sent to you and the rest of the committee after the meeting.
Thank you very much.
I was pleased to see the 10 goals. We've actually spoken about a couple in the section 19s that we spoke about. So you love your waterways and all that. I'm really pleased about that. So improve regulation of high emission materials. What does that actually mean in practice?
Sorry, what page are you on?
159.
10 goals. I'm going back up. I was searching for Councillor Bacon's 150. Yep. Okay, so that goal is very much about in looking at the risk profiles of chemicals and pesticides used in the environment. So that could be things from glyphosate through to other pesticides and chemical controls, and ensuring that we have improved regulation of high emission materials. So those are things that produce higher emissions into the environment of gases.
Because the thing that comes up time and time again in the summer is the pesticides, the weeds.
Yes, I understand
stuff, so
glyphosate is frequently a large issue. that
those
is
conversations
discussed.
with Ireland Road to make sure they're using the right stuff, etc.
It's a really tricky conversation to have, and sometimes that glyphosate is necessary, but the way it is used is unnecessary. And those conversations about making sure that things are used in a very directional, small scale where it is appropriate to do so, take place regularly. And we will, when we look to letting new contracts, ensure that we have those goals built within those contracts into the future, so that we are reducing environmental impact of pesticides going forward.
And how does that happen, Tash? So we adopt this. How does that go out to our contractors and all the people that we use?
So
How does that message get?
in all of our decision making as a council, one of the key things that we brought in when Councillor Bacon was our cabinet member was the sustainable development and climate wheel that you see in the decision making reports of the council. So many of the items that sit within here now as our 10 areas that we need to grow will then feed into the updated sustainable climate change wheel for assessment. What that does is ensure that as we make decisions, and all decisions of the council, that those items are considered and reported on through that process. So it embeds in the corporate DNA the processes of change towards those climate solutions and environmental improvement.
Thank you very much. Councillor Churchman.
Yes, I'd like to go back to basics. Page 152, we talk about carbon offsetting. We talk about planting trees. I might point out, we don't look after the trees we already have. How many of you have gone past hundreds of trees which are being absolutely strangled with ivy? Ivy forces trees to grow taller, which if we do get winds, creates a problem with fallen branches. So not just planting more trees, but somehow can we start taking care of the trees we already have? I know in some circles, certainly where I live, the whole lot are covered with ivy. The National Trust go mad if I go around cutting it down because they say it's good for the insects and everything else, but it's no good for anybody if the blooming tree then falls over. So could we make a point of even town councils? Think of all the trees near you. My husband was a chartered surveyor and his comment always was, if you have trees, you have to look after them. Thank you, Chair.
I know we've got a good tree strategy. Is that on the public? Is that, so because we have a good tree strategy on our area, don't we?
Yeah, so through the chair, we have last year through this committee adopted the council's tree policy and risk management strategy. All of the council's trees have been assessed and sit within a database and have a regular cyclical inspection that we manage on a risk basis to ensure that we have healthy environments for people to walk and be active in, and healthy trees. So those trees are managed through that process. Equally and very excitingly, there is now a tree warden network growing on the island that has been developed by a parish councillor from the West White. That tree network has representatives from over 30 of the different town and parish councils on the island. And we are currently working with Jerry Willis, our tree officer in planning, as well as our tree officer in public realm, to work out how those tree wardens are going to effectively report issues in and how we can help the whole community manage tree risk and healthy trees into the future.
To understand about that tree wardens, is there anything we can have? Is there anything written down, or is it in process of sorting out?
There was a launch earlier this year over at Haven Street for the network to start building itself and to start growing. When that network is in a position to say, we are now formally formed and ready to start doing inspections, then we will bring an update report to yourselves, and they will also, as a network of tree wardens, promote themselves widely across the island.
Vanessa, sounds like you should be a tree warden. Sounds like you should be a tree warden.
I would come back and just ask, when we talk about tree planting, are we trying to aim at those areas where the land is unstable? Because the one thing that trees can do, they can sometimes destabilize land, but they also, with the roots, etc., can create stability by holding the ground together.
Certainly, part of the tree policy that was adopted at, last year is that right tree in the right place strategy, and making sure that we do plant the right kinds of trees in the right kinds of places. So that's about species, it's about water absorption, it's about soil binding, but it's also about making sure that we don't plant things on cliff edges that are then going to break the cliff edges up. So that right tree in the right place plan is certainly embedded in the work that we do.
Anybody else? No? I think it's a testament to actually it's a very good piece of work. But now I'd like to bring in Councillor Spink. Councillor Spink, the committee's finished their questions, so please ask yours.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. Mine's really, I was going to ask, as it happens, the similar question to Councillor Cameron. So I won't ask that again. But what I'd like to know is, my understanding is that the inspector somewhat strangely took out C11, or said we should take out or significantly change C11, because he said that new regulations were coming in. Do we know when those new regulations are coming in? Have they come in already, or when are they expected to come in?
think that's a planning policy question we'll take away, as it's not
Yeah,
actually
because
for
it's
this
not on,
committee.
it should be really on the agenda, but we'll take that away.
I'll take that away and get the answer for you, councillor Spink, and make sure that you do have that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And you said you had 3, didn't you? Have you got another one?
Well, again, I think you'll probably think it's just following on about Councillor Churchman's comments on trees. From recollection, the landscaping that are required by planning conditions for new developments, they only have to look after the trees that are asked to be planted or ordered to be planted. I think it is for 3 years, and thereafter, if the trees die, there's no obligation on them to replace. Would the policy be helped if that were to be changed to make them constantly responsible for or their successors for maintaining the trees and hedges?
Would you like to take that one away as well?
I think I'll take that one away. It's an interesting
It is an
query
interesting
to
yeah,
consider against that long-term ownership and
stewardship of the area.
a long-term stewardship and what we can impose upon a private owner post development. But it's certainly an interesting question
Well, it is an
we can
interesting
take
question.
away and look for an
Yeah.
answer to.
Deserves
Okay.
an answer to that. I look
Thank you
forward to
very
the answer
much.
to that one, Councillor Spink.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Thank you very much for turning up. I appreciate it.
No, not at all. Thank you.
Okay. Again, so the recommendation is that the committee approve and adopt the Environment Improvement and Climate Adaptation Strategy 21 to 40, review and refresh 2025, attached Appendix 1. Affirmation for that, is that okay? Everybody's, there you go. Give my best to everybody that was involved in that. It was very good. Excuse me. So we've got the work plan. And considering our next meeting is in pre-election period, it's probably not going to be. It's not. Is it not? Huh? Oh, it's just before it now. Okay.
The pre-election period's now stated as being the 30th of March rather than the
We did think it
23rd.
was the 30th of March.
So,
Said that earlier, didn't
yeah,
I?
it would have been the 23rd, I believe, had we been doing town and parish and community council elections as well, but it's not.
Oh, that was good. So, anybody got anything to say on that one? Everybody's happy with the work plan so far? Yep. Yeah, I'll take that as a yes. Coming up to the end really, isn't it? Okay, so that's noted, Tash. I know we do origins of settings, so we'll talk about it in a bit more detail, but there's nothing to be added to it.
No, when I've had that response in terms of the decision making in the March committee, I'll let you know and we'll look at the agenda then.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I said when I've had a response from the monitoring officer on what decisions can and can't be made at the end of March, then we will look at that in the agenda
It's
session
moved.
meeting.
That's what we're just saying.
Oh, sorry,
The
I've missed that.
pre-elections changed to the 30th, because we're not
Okay.
doing town and parishes,
Perfect.
so it'd be fine. But bring what you want. Or what we want, sorry. We do. Okay, so thank you very much. So we got members' questions. So we've got one from Councillor Lilly, so he'll get a response for that. He's not here today, but we do have a late question from Councillor Julie Jones-Evans. So given the specific flooding issues at Caesars Road, so this goes back to Newport really, this is why I've allowed it. Julie, did you want to ask it?
Please, is that all right, Chair? Thank you.
Oh, and I'll let you. We're not taxed on it yet.
Yeah, no, thank you. Apologise for the lateness, but I do really appreciate you accepting it. Hopefully it's fairly straightforward. Kind of follows on for a little bit from my question to committee earlier. So given the specific flooding issues at Caesars Road to the front of the properties, not the rear, which back onto the Lukeley Brook and are well known, and we've had several incidents. These are drainage issues on the road itself. And these are ongoing flooding to historic properties, also on Coppins Bridge and at Little London. I'm wondering how will these specific issues be reflected and ameliorated within the tracker and the actions? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so I think there's a kind of two bits about this. So if you start and then what we can do, and I think it probably goes back to that whole setting up of a flood group as well. But we'll start with Tash.
So in terms of the section 19 reports, those are now completed and the recommendations with them are complete. So we're not at a position where we reopen the section 19 report, but I fully understand how it's frustrating it is then the time that it takes to get actions locally, particularly with some of these things that were not within the section 19 but are ongoing issues for you within your ward. I would very much recommend, much as we do with the Gunville Flood Action Group, having regular meetings with the flood risk managers within the council. And then we can have a live action log that we meet on a regular basis to check those actions have been completed, and also look at the wider Newport and Carisbrooke area. We currently meet the Gunville Flood Action Group every quarter. The MP joins that meeting, as well as the ward members, the parish members, and we have very, very productive meetings and actions that are completed. And I'd be more than happy, Julie, to do that with these areas to help support getting those actions and any other actions that you have within Newport and Carisbrooke move forward.
Thank you very much. I'll take you up on that offer. Much appreciated, Tash.
Michelle Love, obviously with highways, you've been quite active with the Gunville as well. You're very supportive, got the sand, so I'm sure you'll be involved with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Natasha's already said, the importance of the community action groups is key. Excuse me. Obviously, island roads have certain responsibilities. So if part of the reason that there is ongoing surface water flooding is related to the assets that they have to maintain as part of their contract, then obviously we will work with them to ensure that that is done. We work with Sam Age, who is the surface water and land drainage officer. So yeah, the systems are all in place, and we will work through with all of the agencies together to ensure that we've progressed.
Find that forum, don't we? Collaboration, I think. Thank you, Julie. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, thank you everybody for your responses. I'll be getting back in touch with you. Thank you. I appreciate the late acceptance of my question, Chair.
Okay then, so that's coming to the end of our meeting then. Thank you very much. Very productive. And Councillor Bacon, 10 minutes before you have to go. Thank you very much, officers. Thank you for your time tonight. And everybody online, thank you very much.